music video is Korean people being introduced to American sectors. See that one?
I haven't seen it, but I think it'll imagine. And vice versa, though.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, but no, this is like, they're one of those like, oh, potato chips. Vinegar, why would anybody do that to potato chips? Although a lot of them are, oh my God, that's so sweet. How can you please? Anyway, not with them all Americans.
Okay, good evening.
Hello.
Hello to the chosen and the faithful few. This is XR block meeting. My co-chair had to fly out earlier today, so it's only me today to master the crowd. It's still an IETF meeting, and note 12 applies. Important information. Any questions or clarifications to the chairs or CRI director, we can help. Okay, blue sheets. We have blue sheets. So Rachel volunteered to take notes. Thank you. Can somebody log into Jabber? Okay, just to make sure. Just to make sure that somebody out there, if they want to make a point, they can do it. Okay, agenda. We have status and we have a few items around the RTC Web statistics internet draft. So hopefully we'll be done pretty soon. Any bashing of the agenda?
We have it already. I don't know why we needed two in this room.
You've got a special area director.
Sierra director has a special blue sheet. Okay, so working in progress. Actually, we are making progress. We have submitted to the ISG yesterday the video LC internet draft. And by the way, Alisa, there is a 05. We discovered overnight that we have a bug. And Rachel corrected it already. So take a 05, please. No, it's the same errata mistake that actually will show up in one of the errata discussions. Actually, has been copied into.
Processing our errata early.
Yeah,
This is basically saying this working group consistently can't count to 5.
Yes, consistently can't count to 4 actually. Okay, and we'll talk about the other two internet drafts during the meeting. Yes, please. In the square. Yeah, there is an on button on the top.
Yeah, it's underneath, but now it's on the top. Yeah, so this is just updates to various drafts that while reading through several of them, I came across some issues. Next slide.
My mouse is lazy.
Probably do a Control L.
Control L. Okay.
What browser is this?
IE?
This is
No, Chrome.
Firefox.
Firefox?
Yeah.
No, it's Chrome.
Okay.
No, I think. Yes.
Yes, it's one.
Yeah. So this was brought up at the last meeting, and it was discussed. We found out the errata that had posted was. Yes, and need an errata to my errata because I proposed a fix, and the problem was that the text read 16 and the bits were 12, so I didn't know which way people wanted to go, and so I posted an errata, and it turned out that people wanted to stay at 12 and actually change the text. So basically, the errata needs to be updated. However, I have no way of doing that. I don't know if I.
So the errata needs to be updated. Actually, the proposed resolution needs to be updated.
Yeah, I can send. I think there was discussion on the list which said that the proposal was wrong and that the text below should be updated and not the packet format. While I had my proposal or my fix when I saw it was to make it consistent with the text, make the packet format consistent with the text.
Okay, so why don't I reject this, the one that's in there, and you file a new one?
Okay.
Okay, and then I'm sorry that I don't remember what the decision was last time.
Hold it
And
for-
then we're holding all of these for document update.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so we are kind of hesitating between actually fixing the format and explaining on the text. So at that point in time in the meeting, we went one way, and that's how the errata was filled. But then the discussions on the list actually led to the conclusion that the other way is the right path.
Right.
Okay, so I'll reject this.
Right. So next one. Yeah, actually,
Come
that's
on.
embarrassing.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the slide 3. So slide 3 is the recently granted RFC, and unfortunately, I'm the co-author of this one. And while going through the document after it was submitted, I noticed that we had a block length set to 4, whereas it should be 3. And yeah, so I think the errata is there, and we just hold it up for.
Hopefully most people can. Hopefully most people will figure out it doesn't parse without this.
Yeah, as in if we put it out there, then there'll be an errata on the top, and if people read the document and go and read the errata, it might work. Next slide. So this is this. So I guess I just post an errata and hold it for update. Yeah.
Unless you think that actually would be. I mean, if somebody actually, sorry, I'll go to the mic. I mean, if somebody actually sent with the wrong length, things would go completely to hell, right? I mean, it would not parse as your generic XR block parser would fall off the end for the next block, and bad things would happen. So
right,
maybe that's actually confirmed. I mean, does it say the right length somewhere else?
No.
I think maybe we should. I mean, it doesn't really, whether it's, you know, that sounds like maybe it should, you know, actually not be, you know, that's a technical errata, not a editorial. Alyssa, do you have a?
Yeah.
All right.
So
it sounds like, you know, it should be for, you know, we don't want to actually make that a confirmed errata, not just hold about an update.
okay.
It's clearly a real bug. Yes.
It is a real bug, and I noticed it after like my code said correctly, and I was.
Well, you have an rock failure because of the error in things. Therefore, it's a.
Yeah. So the code said it, and I was like, okay, what's wrong with this? So I went back and checked each RFC if they had it correct.
Do you want to just BIS the draft?
That would be the quickest.
Huh?
So I don't think it's worth it because you'll probably write a generic XR block parser, and the rules are the same for all these blocks, and this is just a typo in the draft. And I think if you write the generic parser following the guidelines, you will spot this problem immediately. Okay. So we need to log that there's a bug in here, but I don't think we need to redo that.
I think the problem might be if someone goes and reads the block length and then actually parses it, might read something else. Will read the extra bits, and that's the problem.
I'm going to have to chip in on this one, Rick Taylor. Coming in from a completely different group, the question really comes down to is that descriptive, is that example block you've got there, is that the canonical description of that? Or is the block length defined canonically elsewhere? It's defined canonically elsewhere. In which case I would say that was a typographic editorial issue, not a technical issue, because your example is wrong, but the fundamentals are defined canonically elsewhere. Yeah, RFC 3611 actually says that, but there is a definition of the block length in this, which says that it's read 3611, and the value must be set to 4. Is that in that slide, or is that in the text above or below that? Sorry, I haven't read the draft. I haven't read the RFC. The RFC says the block length is defined in RFC 3611, and it must be set to 4. Ah. 7509? Yeah, we could have done it the way that never say what block length is and let everyone just, because this seems to be like an error that happens because we miscount it. And yeah, and the thing is that the value 0 is valid, and that's why the miscounting happens, because it's actually counting the first.
Yes. So I mean, what it says is the block length. This field is set in accordance with the definition in RFC 3611. In this report block, it must be set to 4. And of course, 4 isn't what 3611 would give you.
And it says must in capitals.
Yes.
Yeah. So just confirm the errata. Is that the final going on that?
This one you haven't actually submitted yet, correct?
No.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure.
No, I would say I would put it, but do we need to rev it? Was the other question.
Do we need to?
Do we need to make a BIS draft for this one? Okay.
Yeah.
So based on the last IETF, you noticed that the RFC 7003 had a different limitation, that the block could only be sent with RFC 6958, and and since the two RFCs came out, which was a few years ago, we noticed that, and the assumption was that the burst loss and burst discards are correlated, and since then we realized that they're not necessarily correlated, and therefore you should be able to actually express these metrics independently. So since the last IETF, we submitted a draft which was basically 7003 with the additional data that we needed. So I got Colin Perkins and the rest of the crew that wrote the original draft, to help me with this one. Next slide. So when I was doing the update, I thought we could do some additions here. So the red one is actually copied from the burst loss draft, and also the number of bursts, except in the burst loss, the number of bursts is 12 bits. And here, I was thinking of keeping it 16 so that we can have a 32-bit boundary. The only thing is that the two people care enough to have the same parser and have bits in the right place with exactly the same thing, except instead of loss, it counts discards. So it depends on if people want to reuse their parser for the burst loss, then it might make sense to. As in, I would prefer the 16 bits, but I'm sure the argument can be made that I think there was someone who made it last time, like just copy exactly.
Right.
That was the.
We should assume that yes, although.
But just to motivate, why not add another field, which is discard count, which means that parser would break. So, so like I had another field, just say that, like, you know, since this is supposed to be independently the. Yeah. Yeah. I this time I did count correctly. No, it triggered a lot of reviews for me. Yeah. So if we add the discard count, then I think that argument cannot be made. And the reason to add discard count is that there's another XR block which has discard count, but if you want to send an independent XR block which has a bunch of information which is not there in the previous one, then you're already aggregating information and then adding a bunch of information. Instead of sending 2 or 3 XR blocks, then there could be 1 mega XR block which has a bunch of information related to the same metric, measured in different ways, so that you don't you save maybe 64 bits of header for that. So if no one feels strongly about it, we can live with this. And
So the proposal is to limit to stay with 12?
no, 16.
16.
Yeah.
Okay. Any comment? Problem? Okay.
Half of the people in the room are the authors of the draft. So I thought I heard at least, I would like to hear from at least one person who's not an author of the draft. And Jonathan is indifferent. Okay.
I am an author of the draft, but my contribution was correcting the spelling of Rachel's name. So I think it's fine.
Okay.
So then I think
First of all, this draft needs to be actually resubmitted as XR block draft.
What did I do now? It is. The K is on the other line. Oh, you
No,
mean
it's
the
not a working
IETF?
group. Oh, it's the IETF?
No, I didn't put it as I couldn't skip that skip.
You mean you need to do the call for adoption?
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's do the call for adoption now.
And then
Anybody?
IETF, and then working group last call.
Yeah, no. We need to do the call for adoption. You need to submit it as a draft IETF XR block 00, and then we can last call it. So anybody has a problem with adopting this as a working group item? Okay.
Well, basically, we need this draft because the other draft depends on this one.
Okay.
So
Exactly.
So if we don't do this, then the whole point of writing this draft was because we need a metric in the other draft for the.
Right. So. Okay. So we leave 1 week for confirmation on the working group list. You submit and then submit as a draft IETF XR block, and we go to last call.
Okay.
Sorry? And I'll do a milestone. Yes, please write this milestone on the on the charter. Yeah, the milestone on the charter. That's for the chairs.
Still managed to miss the
Well, I can do a typo and put 2017, and maybe we have chances.
Yeah, so this draft is the XR metrics draft for WebRTC statistics API. This has been held up for at least a year, like fixing all these other references that we needed to get done. I think the RFC 7509 and this new one that I just put forth. But meanwhile, there's been a lot of discussion at the WebRTC working group in W3C about how they're going to handle new identifiers for statistics, because there might be different SDOs that come up with statistics. And so initially for the last 2 years, the plan was to do an INR registry. But since a month ago, there was a decision made in in the working group there that they would just keep the document, like people can send recommendations for new metrics, and if they feel they're useful, they would incorporate it. And if they do not, there should be sufficient text in the WebRTC statistics API document in W3C on how identifiers defined in other SDOs can be incorporated. So right now there's not that text does not exist. So without that information, I think we should just go ahead with the INR registry that we have in this document, that's populated in this document, so that all future XR block things that want to like contribute to the WebRTC statistics API could be documented in one place, and we could send a pointer to that registry to W3C, and they can decide what would be the next step for them. The only thing I can think of in that sense is that we could say that please do not reuse the identifiers defined here to mean something else elsewhere.
So just to be clear, so their process will be actually updating a wiki page?
There have been many proposals to this, and I think that is one of the possible outcomes. But currently there is a W3C document, so definitely while that document exists, contributions can be made to that document directly in the form of making a proposal and sending it there, and it's up to them to decide if they want to incorporate the identifiers defined in another standards organization into that document. But there is currently not enough like process documented on how this is going to happen in practice. So without much information, I think.
So what actually we can do at this point in time with our document, so assuming that we want to progress it, actually should kind of mention that it's a snapshot true to this moment, or what?
You mean the W3C?
Yeah.
Yeah, W3C document has at least it seems the trend is that they would snapshot it at some point and say this is WebRTC statistics for version 1, and that would be the document. And if there are new metrics that are needed, then there would be version 1.1 or version 2 or next version, or and then the document would come back.
Okay, so actually we need to do an adjustment and say something like those are the statistics aligned with WebRTC 1.0.
Do we? Because that document, like the document which has, I think that's up to W3C to decide which metrics they want to. I don't know if you want to like create a two-way interaction, like.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
As in the WebRTC document can say like which of these statistics they want for version 1.
Yeah, trying to bring back my recover from the crash. Get my presentation.
What is the timeline on the publication of the W3C spec?
I think April 2016 or November 2016 for snapshotting it for version 1.
Okay.
I might be misspeaking, but there is a milestone for CR or candidate release, I think.
Okay. And this is like a pretty crummy situation. I find like it's really suboptimal to have these defined here, and then we like throw them over the wall and say, well, whatever you decide to do with your process, like here are these, like please don't squat on them, like that's like why we have registries. I'm just venting about the decision that they made essentially, but
right. As in I think the reason they might, I don't think they've actually, I don't think the ship has sailed on making the case for an INR registry for these identifiers, just that there was another decision made recently for constraints.
okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah,
so But that decision didn't extend to this.
Not necessarily. They just said that they would follow, like there was consensus to just follow the same process, except there was no call for that yet.
Okay. I'm just wondering if we should like liaise something. That's actually what I was thinking. Like
I think if maybe we should.
Like the XR block. Well, okay. So now I'm like completely speaking out of turn because it's not really my job to do this, but I would just put the idea out there. If the XR block working group cares about this enough, then and is worried about it getting screwed up, then the working group could think about writing a liaison statement to WebRTC.
If the working group will still be here.
It's not closing. At least I can get that memo.
I mean, you mean if XR block will still be
Yeah.
here? I mean, doing it now. Like, that's what I mean. You have this draft. I mean, if there's consensus that like you want to go forward with this draft and you think having an IANA registry is the right way to go and so on, then.
Yeah, and I think it's a IETF draft, so
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, we've not actually formally ever sent them anything, so. Who does that?
I can do it, but I need help into figuring out what we need to put in this liaison. So basically telling them that, or should we do it before we last call the document?
Which last call, working group or IETF?
Working group.
Uh-huh.
Let's start with working group.
I think the liaison statement does not need to like gate on the last call, because they might just take like months to respond to that.
Sure. So that's one argument. The other is that if the liaison statement says you need to do something, there's a chance that they'll turn around and say no, and we'd then have to modify the draft. We would want to do it before working group last call.
Harold and I are the document authors on the other side.
You're sending yourself a liaison
Yeah.
statement.
It's a common practice.
What?
Yeah, I guess having yourself, sending yourself a liaison statement.
So, Magnus Wessler, yeah. I mean, really, the best way of getting the response you expect is to send a liaison statement with the message you want the other party to receive, and then write the response and try to convince the other side that that's the right thing to go back. So,
Right. As in the TPAC was just last week, and we had this discussion, and the case that I made for actually going with an INR registry for the metrics was mainly that there, like for the constraints, there's never been such registry, and there has never been an inclination for that. However, metrics have been well defined across the board, not only in the IETF but in ITUT and several other places. So there is precedent for like using registries, and having one registry to do that makes sense. But the pushback was that, well, I can't say what the pushback was because this is being recorded, right? So,
Rick Taylor again. I'm here because I'm interested in metrics coming across from mobile ad hoc environment, and it's not really RTC. It's just metrics in general. And there's got to be a registry somewhere. And if there's an IETF draft which defines how to use these metrics, then a corresponding IANA registry strikes me as the best place to do it. So surely you request a registry in the bottom of your draft that is adopted by a working group, goes through to the last call, and it gets picked up as it moves through the IESG and through the IAB. And that's not my issue, but I would really like you to adopt it as part of the IETF process, because that means I can start to use some of these metrics downstream from other areas.
Yeah,
Strangely routing.
I believe that I also personally like this path better, and probably the way to go is that actually we do this registry. We are starting from the set, taking a snapshot of what you have right now. We suggest that we coordinate, and whenever you update you update the wiki page or whatever process you are using in order to add new metrics, you inform the working group, or we need to provide an address, maybe the art area or something like this about this taking place. There can be one way.
I think the other way is that don't, like, if there are things that there's a registry which already has a set of variables, then if you're making like a wiki page and you have similar but not same metrics, then don't use the same identifier. I think that's the main thing from
Yeah, go.
So I guess what I'm unclear on is whether this decision has actually been made for metrics in WebRTC, in the W3C or
I think
not.
there was never a consensus, complete
Okay.
consensus. There was never said that this is the way we're going to go for it. So,
Okay.
so like one way to maybe force a decision is to say that there is now a registry somewhere else, and now you have to respond to that. Like,
Right. Okay.
Not you as in, but you as in W3C would have to respond.
Yeah. So I think to your earlier question, Dan, you should continue to progress this draft. Like, there's no reason not to do everything that you would normally do, but like, the W3C is our friend, and you don't want to, like, there's also no reason to try and help them to come to what this group thinks is the right decision, even before that draft becomes an RFC. So that's why I think,
okay,
you know,
I think the liaison statement.
Yeah, so
makes
like
sense.
progress the draft, send the liaison statement, and then the draft will become an RFC, and there will be an IANA registry, and that will further reinforce the point.
Later is better
you know
than
what I mean?
sooner. Okay.
Yeah, and I think if they don't want to go with an IANA registry, at least there's a registry where they know things are there. So.
Rick Taylor again. Normally when setting up an IANA registry, you have to specify the expert review process and other considerations for the IANA. And there's nothing to stop you putting a statement in there to say, this is being paralleled with W3C. They need to be kept in the loop and follow whatever process you guys and the W3C think works well. You can always put those considerations in there.
Yes, because, well, usually, let's assume, I assume that we'll do something like expert review. So we can include the instructions to the expert or some kind of guidance for the expert, for the future experts.
But typically you would also say if a document specification required or not. I think it's a metric. So
specification required is overkill, because now we enter into the discussion whether a wiki page on the W3C website is a specification or not. And
no, from a point of view for the IANA, it should not. Like,
from the IANA, it would mean that actually we need to revise this RFC or write a new one every time we want to add new statistics.
As in, I don't think a wiki page is codified enough to actually say that an IANA registry can have a reference to a wiki page. I don't think that's sensible, because like someone can change a wiki to whatever, as in you have a metric, it could be redefined every day of the week, right? And like it's not Wikipedia, but yeah.
Yeah, so a W3C specification can easily meet the bar for
Right.
specification required.
Right.
So that's more what I would expect.
Yeah, so any specification anywhere in any SDO would.
Okay, so next steps before my computer crashes again.
Yeah, so there were a couple of open issues. The last one's been closed. I added a reference to it. I guess it's a normative one, so it would just be stuck in until this one gets approved. But I think we can just progress them. And
okay, now working on last call, there's something that Shida actually needs to call for consensus, because I am a co-author here. Do we want to send the document in last call actually to send it to W3C? Actually, let them know that we'll certainly put a message on the RTC web
I think they're aware.
mail list.
I think they're aware of the document, but I think.
Let me ask you a different question in more simpler English. Does anybody else, excepting you and Harald, who are anyway here, care?
I think lots of people care.
Yeah, in the WCC.
Yeah.
Okay. So
At least that was
so we
like all the browsers care, and I think browsers, from their point of view, I think they want to have a low bar process where they would be able to add like either browser prefix metrics, which is okay, but to the mix and actually see what is possible and then define one. And they want to have like I think the leaning is towards having a very simple process. And since the text for this has not yet been ratified in any form in the W3C, so I can't say.
Okay, so what people think should do is certainly we should send the letter, in my opinion, by IETF last call. The question is if we should do it by working group last call.
I think earlier is better, just so that they're aware of this decision is coming and not be like blindsided by saying that this is too late in the process to come here and engage.
I see a couple of positive nodding. Okay. Good. So any problem with preparing this to send to working group last call? Good.
Yeah, I think the only question would be to not send it to working group last call is if someone has a metric that has not been included here and feels strongly about including it in the list.
Well,
and
he or she can actually make this comment also in working group last call.
Right.
And actually somebody from RTC Web working group may come with such a comment. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other business? Okay, we are done. Thank you. So Rachel, please send me the notes so that I can issue the draft minutes. Blue sheet. Anybody didn't sign the blue sheet, please make sure that you have a seat in Buenos Aires. Yeah.
What, the shoebox?
Well, they did take more time than all the meetings before.
No meeting in Buenos Aires, right?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your meeting.
No.
It's good. Carry it like that.
Now the microphone's off. I think you need to adopt that document. Give a little bit of moment for W3C and others to wake up. Everything's a bit slow. Then you place it.
Well, I don't know.
You can't be criticized for following process. Well, you can be.
There's issues with Iana or something.
And the other is IPR, I think.
Yeah.
No, yeah, not on this one, but they're afraid that IANA does not give enough protection for like because
A trademarked constraint.
right, like there might be a trademark constraint, yeah, or metric which is defined.
No, that's not a real thing. That was a joke.
I don't know, yeah,
I
maybe.
wish it was a joke.
Yeah.
But what does that mean? I mean, if the alternative is like we put them on a wiki, why is that better?
It's not going to fly.
No,
It's not better.
I think the wiki one is basically what do you do when the document's already been snapshotted and the intervening period before there's a new document. It's in the wiki.
Yes, but what IPR rules cover something and it's on a wiki? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, but then they reject stuff that has IPR.
Who?
The W3C says that we don't want this metric which has IPR.
But that's